Hello, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of the authors and historians interviews here on my YouTube channel, Tales from the Wandering Scribe, for the month of July. I am your host, Gabriel Garcia, otherwise known as the Wandering Quill and the Wandering Scribe. And today, starting off the month of July, is our first author interview. Now, this guest I am excited to share with you all. If you remember 2 years ago, I interviewed this guest about their debut novel, Four Seasons of Aravan, and it was an incredible experience. And since that first meeting, me and this guest have been working together on numerous projects. You've heard me name drop her many a times. She has been the illustrator for all of my books, for the maps and images. She's also been an incredible editor, one I cannot speak enough about. She is an incredible author who creates immersive worlds similar to Kim and many other guests, and all around, she's an incredible human being. Making her second appearance back on the channel, let's give a huge round of applause to author, editor, illustrator, businesswoman, and all around everything, Lowri Ball, otherwise known as the Ivory Quill. Lowri, thank you so much for coming back on the show today.
Sorry, Gabriel, inviting me back on.
Nice, nice. So, what can you tell our viewers about your background since the last time we had you on the show 2 years ago?
Well, going back a bit, I've somewhat published the book, and then it got taken down again. So back in the lookout for a publisher. But yeah, I'm in another round of editing for that book because I just wasn't happy with it again. Never am. Since then, I've started editing book 1 again and started editing book 2. And I've started writing a completely different book unrelated to that series. And I've started taking on commissions more, like from yourself. So keeping myself busy.
And it's true, viewers and listeners. Lowri is an incredible author and illustrator. I promoted the heck out of her on my social media because she is that talented. She is truly has an amazing gift, which will be a perfect segue into this interview. So, Lowri, what would you say was your aha moment that you wanted to be creative, that was something that you wanted to pursue both as a passion and a career? So, how did the book side come about? And then how did the artist side come about as well?
So we were always sort of creative as children, be it my granddad sending us small sort of stories in the post, um, which then would promote us to write our own short stories back, or doing crafts with mum at the table, and she'd often read to us as well at night. So we've always sort of been crafty and, in the world of books. So growing up, it was sort of, we were brought up around it. So getting sort of older and going through high school, I took art as like sort of my qualification. So I got qualifications in all my artwork, and then the writing sort of kicked in COVID time when we all got put into lockdown, and that's when the art and both the books sort of come about. The book became a boredom sort of killer during COVID, and then
Right.
it just sort of kept going and going and going. So I just ran with it, and it's sort of led now to a 3-piece trilogy. Well, possibly more, but can't confirm. But yeah, and the artwork then sort of followed because I created this entire world. I needed to almost jot it down onto paper as to not forget things, and to also sort of have it there as a visual while I was writing. So that sort of brought in the attempts at map drawing, because I hadn't really dabbled in maps much before. So yeah, so that brought about the maps, and then obviously I met you on Inkit. Most was reading your book, so then it sort of just spiraled from there. I've
Definitely.
done now.
Awesome. And that is true, listeners. Just as Lowri said, we all met on Inkit. That was pretty much our. I didn't have my social media platform as I do now, viewers and listeners. Inkit was my only, you could say, social media platform, and that's where I met Lowri, Kim, Winchester, Timidin, a lot of other authors there, and it's been an incredible journey since then. And speaking of Inkit, I know, Lowri, that your story is still being updated on Inkit. For those that do not have Inkit, do not know what your story is about, as a refresher, what is the Four Seasons about, and what is the ultimate grand tale you are creating?
So the Four Lands of Aravan currently isn't up on Inkit to read, as I think I'm planning on editing it, and then putting it up chapter by chapter as I'm editing, just so I can get some feedback as well. But it should be on Inkit hopefully within the next few months. But it's basically based on four clans, which are sort of linked with the four elements, being earth, air, fire, and water. And they are ruled by a king and queen, but they all they're sort of split human and fae, and some half fae as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they all sort of lived and coincided for years and years and years. And then Trinity War happened, and all the lands got split with borders and laws. It was split human and fae, and they weren't to interact or, sort of fraternize or anything like that. So that went then, and that's when our sort of story starts. And it starts with Cadence Banshaw, who is the main character, and he's born of two different clans. So he's sort of like got features of both. And the air clan side of him, being the wings, is not widely sort of accepted because of their part in the war. So he's, we meet him first, and we also get introduced to his father, well, adoptive father later on, as his village is attacked. And it sends him then on the run to the capital to try and warn them of the humans crossing into their lands, burning his village, and taking some captive. So he has to go on this adventure then to get to the capital, meeting some other characters along the way, and he also sort of discovers more about himself, that being the title bloodline. So he discovers his lineage, his parents, who they are, and possibly some other family members who I won't give away too much. But yeah, so that then obviously a lot of plot twists and things along the way, but that then will span into book 2 and 3, which continues on his story.
All right, all right. And as a little teaser of yours, I don't want to spoil it too much, but this is truly a high epic fantasy. Literally, in the prologue, I want to say alone, Lowri has created a world that not even I could have ever come up with. The different clans, the air, the water, earth. I believe there's, what's the name that you said for Fire Clan, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, it's fire, but they're all sort of named after the Latin. So
Yes. Yeah, but the world that these clans exist in, it's unlike anything I have ever seen or ever read. And I was blown away. Again, I don't want to give too many spoilers for this. I'm going to save it until when the book is out. But Lowri, when you were crafting the story in the beginning, especially since it's on the high fantasy side, what was sort of like your goal that you set out with creating this story, as well as the need you want to satisfy for fans of the high fantasy genre?
So starting out, I didn't have particularly any goals at all, other than to give myself something to do. But obviously developed and grew into something a bit more than just a sort of hobby on the sidelines. Um, I did sort of want to add something to the high fantasy genre, because I find reading a lot of, I'm a high fantasy, sort of nutcase, and I love a good high fantasy book. But I find there's a lot of sort of tropes and sort of cliches that quite a few authors will use. So I wanted to try sort of avoid those if I could,
Mm.
maybe add something new into it, sort of like a different plot twist that, is sort of either not widely used, or, just to add something different, because I didn't want to make it any other book. So I wanted it to be able to immerse the readers, but also give them something new to experience as well.
Nice, nice. And yes, as I said, viewers, at the beginning, Lowri's world building is very much similar to Kim's. It is literally reading like Tolkien or C.S. Lewis, and I'm not even kidding. It is some of the best world building among all the books I've read, and I may be biased here, and if I am, I don't care, because these guys are my closest friends. They are some of the best world building authors I have ever seen. And when you posted the first few chapters on Inky, then eventually the story before now re-editing them, what was the initial feedback like from the Inky community and just from friends and family you've told the story about?
So they were, Inkit was a bit sort of iffy with comments and reviews being sort of received. But the few that I did manage to reach out to and get back from people, they were mostly positive, to be fair. Some had some critiques, which was very useful. I do like to have critiques and stuff to work on, because it means I can improve, and possibly avoid some things people don't like, or add something else to it. So they were positive, on the majority. Of course, there's a few that, skim through it, or, post a general comment that don't particularly help. But yeah, I'd say on the whole, I think it was a good platform to start on. I am looking to sort of branch out to different platforms as well. So always keeping my eye out if any recommendations come my way.
Right, right. And from those critiques that really gave you some good feedback, would you say in a way that they kind of validated your goal when creating this story, that, as you say, you want to avoid the cliches that were popular in the high fantasy genre, as well as the tropes that were present in the fantasy genre?
Oh, absolutely. They did. They sort of gave me a good direction to head in, especially to avoid some of those. So I would say the comments were helpful in both the fact they helped me look out for common mistakes I'd make, or perhaps something that wasn't spelt right, or just a typical sort of mistakes you'd make writing. But they did also help me keep an eye out for those sort of things as well.
Definitely. And I also know that firsthand, viewers. When Lowri actually reviews on my work, I have never seen like the length of like a comment I got at the very end. It's like, oh, this is good, because just like Lowri, the reviews on Inkit were very, very positive, and some were very, very constructive. Some, as Lowri also mentioned, were kind of not really helpful because like either the one word or one sentence. But when reading Lowri's and her reading mine on Inkit, oh my gosh, I never expected like a long paragraph, but it's actually because of that that I knew, like, okay, this person knows exactly what she's looking for in a story. She knows, okay, these are good, but definitely do this, and we'll all talk about this more, viewers, when we get to the business side of being an author. But before we get to that, we're now going to touch on a very one of many personal and reflective questions. So, Lowri, as you said in the beginning, just like me, you began writing the four lands around lockdown, around quarantine, initially to keep busy. But when you finally finished the story and you wanted to get this published, as you know, being an author it's not easy. It's hours and hours of editing, revising, finding a cover artist, finding an editor, and when you finally get it out there and put it on the stage, be it a digital stage, ebook form, or a print stage where it's actually physically somewhere, there's that voice in the back of your head saying that you're not good enough, you don't belong here. So for you, Lowri, in your opinion, and from your own experiences, have you ever had those moments of imposter syndrome? And if not, what has continued to discipline you to not only write your stories, but now also going back to your artwork, still creating incredible art as well?
Oh, absolutely. I still get it now. It's especially now writing a completely new book. It's almost like the imposter syndrome gets stronger because it's, your first draft and it's never the way you properly want it yet. But,
Yes.
it puts a lot of stress as well because I want to almost get it right first time and not have to redo it all and re-edit it. And it does, you don't feel like you're at a standard like the ones you look up to, or the books you grew up reading. You never feel
Right.
work is up to that standard. So definitely
Hmm.
with Lands of Aravan as well, I struggled a lot. And being being a trilogy, it was consistent through all of them, and it probably still will continue to be like that for a long while. I think being published at one point, it was almost that reassurance that your work is good enough to sort of reach that standard and that quality. So being back unpublished again, it's almost brought it all back to the surface. And it is the same with my artwork as well. We all use social media and everything, and you can do a piece you've been wanting to do for ages, and then you might happen to go on Instagram and you see all these other pieces of artwork, and it does, the imposter syndrome and that doubt
Hmm.
comes. So it is a struggle, but I think once you get into it and enjoy it, it does help sort of reduce that feeling, especially doing commissions for you as well and hearing your feedback. It does sort of reassure me that they're at least to a standard that you as a sort of customer are happy to do business with. So yeah, I think hopefully it gets better for the both of us, but yeah.
Yes. Definitely. And this actually perfectly segues now to the business side of being an author. And I was going to add on the other side of being an artist as well. So for you, Lowri, initially you said in the beginning that the Four Lands was originally published, but then now you're in the process of re-editing it and hopefully getting it published again. Now, from that first experience, would you say you still are going the self-publishing route, or do you want to try your hand at the traditional publishing route? And also for your artwork, being in a way a freelance artist, did you ever want to try to find like an art? I don't know if these are a thing, but like an artist guild to be part of like a group of artists who create like very similar art, or did you want to be on your own, creating your own art to show your individuality, but also your uniqueness? Because again, I cannot stress this enough, viewers and listeners, Lowri is an incredible artist. Everything is hand drawn, everything is perfectly detailed. You cannot see it, but right next to me, I have a wall with all 4 commissions that Lowri has done, 3 of which are maps. One is an image, which I showcase on my social media, which is the banner for Michael, Last Angel of Earth, and it is simply the best. So let's actually talk about that, Lowri. Sorry if it's like a big loaded question, but just wanted to discuss that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to go down the traditional publishing route. I did think about doing the self-publishing, but being sort of amongst my work and the artwork and everything else, I think it would sort of be a bit too much on my shoulders for now.
Right.
But publishing route doesn't lead anywhere. I have sort of submitted to publishers in sort of nearby, or at least, sort of local to Wales. I'm hoping that I'll either hear a reply, but if not, maybe in the coming sort of year or so, I might look at more into self-publishing. And as for the artwork, I've never really thought about sort of joining like a group, or I have looked into, companies that might want artists and things, but
Right.
I think for the minute, unless something else like more enticing turns up, I will probably continue freelance, just because, it's my own name then out there, and, my own skills and, design. So, and it also works well because I do sort of like a market stall sometimes on the market in town. So, again,
Mm-hmm.
work, and so offering commissions as well. So I think it works better with the both sort of sides of the business. It's not separated then between sort of like a group and then me individually. So yeah, I'll probably stay individual and freelance for the artwork, but as for the books, I'm hoping to get published again.
All right. And speaking for both, I know it's always important to understand, the audience that you're creating for. And a lot of times, specifically for first time authors, the audience is really never taken into consideration, because when we write our stories, we write them for ourselves initially in the beginning because we love these stories. But when we want to share these stories, we now have to think, okay, who's the audience that we're writing for? So for you, Lowri, in your opinion, how important is it for, first time authors and even first time artists really understand who their audience is? And looking back when you started this journey, do you have a good idea of who your audience is?
I'd say it's very important, the audience at least in the back of your mind, if not the forefront, because at the end of the day, they are the ones that will be reading your book, unless you are creating your book solely for yourself or, personal use. Then I'd say, you know, keeping the audience in mind and trying to not tailor it, because obviously you want it to be how you want it as well, because it is your work at the end of the day, but trying to bear in mind things that might suit the type of audience you're aiming towards. Like mine are towards more adult, or sort of above,
Right.
because of the content and stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
bearing in mind what they'd enjoy reading, but also what's suitable for them, I suppose, because you wouldn't want to put high fantasy things into a children's book unless it's
Right.
suited to their sort of age range. So um obviously, like you said in the beginning, we don't think of anyone but ourselves, unfortunately, because it's the beginning. We're sort of getting
Mm-hmm.
our own work as well. um yes, I say to new writers, to especially keep in mind to keep in mind your audience, and also to try keep in mind as well the genre that you're aiming it towards, because you don't want to either add too many genres to it, or
Right.
things. So you want to make it sort of clear what genre it's falling into to grab those readers as well.
Definitely, definitely. And actually, you mentioned about, do you want to be this or that? It's actually going to be huge when we talk about later. And for those who understand what I'm referring to, it is the two paths, which is, you want to be an author or do you want to be known as an author? Because those are two very different goals with two very different paths, which we will touch on later. But now going to the next question. Now, Lori, I'm sure you will agree, for us as authors, we're always inspired by the books we read growing up. And I saw earlier your tattoo, which I can imagine is that the sign for the Lord of the Rings? I knew it. I knew it. It was something like that. But that actually ties perfectly into this question because, we're always inspired by the books we have read growing up, the films we've watched. All those things play huge roles into how we bring about our stories and how we craft our prose by our own voice. So, for you growing up and now, what authors and books or movies really helped create the author that you are now in terms of prose, world building, character development, and also going back to your artwork? What artists would you say have really helped you hone your unique style of artistry?
So the obvious for the books would be J.K. Rowling being one of them, but J.R. Tolkien. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
he was a massive, role model growing up, and even now, he sort of has the whole package of world building, characters, languages, anything you can think of. Basically, he's mastered. So him, absolutely, and obviously some new ones because obviously I read a lot, so it's continuing in that filtering of ideas and world building as well. Writing a new book, it's always good to get some new ideas and ways to look at things. So I definitely say those two, but I used to read a lot of like Charles Dickens as well, so
Mm.
has some sort of connection into my work without me knowing. But yeah, so those probably were two of the main ones. And in terms of the artwork, I find a lot of the black and white style when I went to sixth form. So around about 16 to 18, I found the sort of illustration side of artwork and fine line. So I started exploring more black and white instead of color. And then artists were, I had to obviously research the artists, and find some on Instagram like Jamie Latoria, and he does a lot of sort of cartoony black and white, and I really liked his style. So I learned a lot of techniques from, because obviously you don't have colors to distinguish certain parts, so it's based on like patterns or darker shades of blacks and grays. So he definitely helped a lot in building the style and the techniques that you need to do this black and white work, especially sort of maps, because there's a lot of detail in maps, and it's
Yes.
to make them obvious as to what it is without using color. Um, but I would say it's a lot easier using color.
Yeah, that is true. And you know what? You probably like J.K. Rowling and J.R. Tolkien. I think has been like the main source of information for all of us. I would even go say maybe C.S. Lewis, George R.
Yeah.
Martin. All of these titans in the fantasy genre have really inspired, yourself, me, Kim, Winchester, and a whole bunch of other people from our inner circle on Inc. Because these people knew what they were wanting to write. They knew the story that they wanted to tell. And ultimately, it's what I like to call the three E's: educate, entertain, and enlighten. Because we've all learned very important lessons from all these stories: friendship, right from wrong, and so forth. We've been entertained by the stories because, especially with the films that really help captivate these stories, they really bring the humor side. And then enlighten, which I think is the huge thing in all of these works, which is very, very fascinating and really, really powerful. It's actually a much better form of inspiration than my original, which was writers are liars, cheaters, and thieves, because we make stuff up, we cheat people out of time, and we steal from one another because the same story has been told numerous times over, which is true. in
Yeah.
that case, I mean, the same story, the hero's journey has been told numerous times, but we still enjoy the hero's journey because you can do a lot
Oh yeah.
with that. And now going to the next question, which is a very interesting one. It refers to readership. Now, the reason why I bring this up, viewers and listeners, is that while the audience is important to really understand who we're writing for, ultimately, as Lowri said, the readers are the people who are going to read your story and give you the comments. Now, your readership may not be the same as your audience. You could write for the audience, the fantasy genre, science fiction, thriller, noir, whatever. But your readership may be entirely different. It may be people who have never read a book in the genre that you're writing for, and this is their first introduction. And they'll probably give the best reaction or the most constructive reaction, no matter what form it takes. So, for you, Lowri, when you started off this journey during lockdown, writing the Four Lands, did you notice your readership change from the beginning to, well, before you decide to re-edit it? Because as you say, you haven't shared it yet because you're waiting until it's fully completed.
Yeah, I'd say so. Putting it up on Inkit the first time, I did notice, comments, because you can do like review swaps on Inkit that are quite
Mm-hmm.
common. So I did sort of do a few of those in the beginning to get some comments and things. And I did notice a few of the people I'd review swap with said that they had never read that sort of high fantasy before, or were a more usual sort of reader of, say, romance or that, other genres or other than the fantasy genres. So it was nice to get people's views on the fantasy genre when they weren't sort of introduced to it, or sort of widely knowledgeable in it. So their comments almost helped more because they didn't have all this knowledge beforehand of sort of tropes and cliches and all that.
Right.
At least say their comments and feedback in the beginning were much more useful. But now I'm hoping, when I finish editing it and manage to put it back up on Inkit, I'm hoping as well I can attract more of that, just so I can get, a new outlook on it. Because for me as the writer, it's all in my head. It all makes sense. But,
Yes.
even when I reread it, it's, I can't read it for the first time again. So it's getting those new perspectives on it, and perspectives that come from other genres that might even feature in the high fantasy, but they're not prominent. But yeah, I definitely say the readership has shifted a lot since the beginning when I first uploaded it on Inkit.
Nice. That's actually really good. And it's actually perfectly segues into the next big question, which is a huge one. It's a new one, which is, I'm sure you definitely agree, Lowri, probably seeing on social media that a lot of people, especially on Instagram, posting their first books, like this new book's coming out, and it's exciting. When creating your first story and showcasing it to the world is an incredible feeling, and getting the initial reactions is great. That is an incredible feeling. But I also feel it's a double-edged sword because it promotes unrealistic expectations. And what I mean by that is we get lost in the glitz and glamour of being an author or being known as an author as opposed to just being an author. And why I say this is very damaging is that you will now be writing for the clicks and the trends of what's happening. And that could be good if you can meet it. But in the book world, nothing's for certain. Nothing's like guaranteed. The popular book may be gone in a month or two. And this is when I learned a very important lesson from a fellow author who said that the biggest lie a young author can believe is that their debut novel is going to be the start of their legacy. Now, there are exceptions to that rule. There are authors who have worked very hard and their debut novel skyrockets them to award-winning status. Congratulations. That is a huge accomplishment and achievement, and that allows them to live off of that success to create more stories. But on the other side of the coin, you have other authors who rise, fall, rise again, and fall down even hard. And then that imposter syndrome comes back again with a vengeance, and it's much more prevalent because you didn't reach the audience or the goals that you wanted. So, in your opinion, Laura, and from your own experiences, how important is it for new authors to really understand that there is no guarantee that their debut novel is going to be the start of their legacy, but it should not deter them from writing stories if writing stories and being an author is something they want to be?
It's incredibly important. I've had the same thing when I first started writing. But getting past that point of writing just for myself and getting into the idea of being an author and putting my work out there, it's quite daunting. And like you said, seeing all these trends and all these new things that people are putting in their books that people seem to be really enjoying, that's perfectly fine. Add them to your books, but like you said, it's got to have that understanding that they might not be there in the month's time. It might not be more sort of looked for, because trends are always on the high and on the low. So yeah, I think for new authors it is important to bear in mind the fact that it's not stable. You've got to create your own work, create your own trends in a way,
Yes.
that are going to entice readers, but they're not, you're not tied into this typical sort of boundary that other authors may fall into. I myself fell into it quite a few times, and when I got published, that was a really high point, and obviously I've fallen down from that now, but hopefully it will sort of go up again. But I'm not holding out hope in a way, because to get your hopes up too high, it's not good for anyone. So it's good to be positive, and but keep that sort of reserve side of yourself, so that you're not going to give up in a month's time when it doesn't go the way you want, or you don't have the outcome you want, because at the end of the day nothing is so straightforward. You have got to work for things. So I think it's important for new and young authors to bear in mind the fact that things can change within a minute's notice, but to not let it affect your sort of passion for what you're doing, because writing is it's personal. It's a way of maybe sharing even your story in a way that's hidden sort of behind a fantasy. So
Right.
If it's important to you and you want to share it, then at the end of the day, even if your numbers fall or you don't get the comments you want, it's important to keep going and keep pushing it, because one day it might hit the break.
Definitely, definitely. And also to add to that, it's also going back to what we said at the beginning, being an author is not easy. It's hours and hours of editing, hours and hours of writing. It may take you years to create your first book, and that could just be after the final draft stage. We're not even talking about the second, third, final edit, even the seventh revision. It may be 10 years or even 12 years until you publish your first book. And then even from there, that's when the marketing side, the business brain comes out, where you now have to promote your book. No matter what route you go to, marketing is key. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that a lot of authors struggle with. I myself, I'm still working for it. But if you can go through the hurdles, the fires and the flames, a little Dragon Force reference for the fans, you're going to be fine, because grit trumps talent. Doesn't matter if you're the best prose writer. Doesn't matter if you can literally make something jump off the screen. Doesn't matter if you create a food in your story that's so delicious from your descriptions, it makes me want to eat the page. If you're not willing to go through the hurdles as any other author who have gone before you, you may want to reevaluate yourself. But if you can, if you agree to it, then guess what? Grit transforms into talent, and that gets better as time goes on. And it also doesn't hurt to have a good support group of people who have been by your side, fellow authors, friends and family, and so forth. So for you, Lowri, who have been your biggest supporters and cheerleaders for you on this journey of yours?
So my mum has been a massive supporter. She's even helped me with some of the designs for creatures and sort of the countries.
Ooh, okay.
So she's been a massive sort of help um, coming into even some of the world building. You know, she's been brilliant. Um, and my fiance as well, she's been brilliant. She's helped a lot of ideas. I tend to bounce quite a few ideas off her, so she probably gets sick of it sometimes. But random ideas and comments I keep coming out with, or random questions I expect her to know the answers to. So, but no, I'd say them two especially have been massive sort of influences and supports. But overall, my family's all been supportive. My two sisters, my dad, you know, they've all been supportive, and my grandparents, when I got published, they all bought a book. You know, people I used to know from the village I lived in, they were all, you know, up and ready to buy one. So yeah, I've had support sort of all round. But I'd have to say my fiance and my mum are the main ones out of them all that have, you know, sort of helped me along the way and pushed me. Because there were times I, you know, thought about giving up on it, or, you know, putting it down for a bit, but they were the ones that sort of nudged me along and kept me going. So yeah, I definitely say support is very important as well, like you said, to new authors especially. So I find Inkit is good for that. They're quite a, you know, it's quite an accepting and positive community to be in, especially if you are putting your story in the world for the first time. So I definitely say if you're a new author, then either go to Inkit, possibly even Wattpad. I haven't really ventured there for quite some time, but yeah, I'd I'd say for my support, that would be that's about it.
Nice. Any authors that you've met over the journey, either on Inkit or Instagram, you want to give shout outs to who you've made great connections with?
Yeah, so obviously there's you and Kim. There's also Daniel Parry. She's been absolutely amazing. I met her on Inkit as well. We did a review swap about the same time as I think I met you and Kim. Been, you know, helping each other edit books and everything since. So she's been a massive help as well. I think she's over in Australia, so she's the other side of the world. But no, she's been brilliant as well in terms of support and influence as well. So yeah, big shout out to her. But
Awesome. Awesome. Now we reach the final question of this incredible interview, Lowri. So, with everything that you've gone through on your journey from creating your first story, posting it on LinkedIn, making the friends and more, and beginning your art journey around the same time, creating new creatures, creating incredible imagery, as well as the very, very beautiful and highly detailed maps. What is your word of wisdom to fellow artists and authors who want to get their foot in this business and industry?
so I'd say to artists, obviously I'm not, you know, a creator with thousands and thousands of followers, but I'd say to artists to, you know, if you found a style you enjoy and you found techniques that you enjoy, um, just keep posting it. Post it on Inkit even. You can post it on your wall, but post it on you know, Instagram, any social media platform you can. Basically, get your name out there. If you have got a business, and promote it. You know, you might receive some odd comments here and there that aren't particularly encouraging, but focus on the ones that are, because at the end of the day, if you're enjoying it, and the same goes
Right.
with writing, if you're enjoying it, then as long as as long as you're happy with what you're writing and it's bringing in good and positive, comments, then just go for it, because at the end of the day, you've only got to, make yourself happy. And as long as your audience as well is on board, then, you've not got much to worry about. There's always going to be people that poke and prod for a response, and,
Yes, that's true.
that constantly, will backlash some negative comments. But it's important to ignore those hateful ones, because at the end of the day, they're not, they can take down some of your, confidence, but just focus on the positive rather than the negatives. It's definitely a struggle sometimes, but
Yes.
worth it in the end. It really is. And people you meet along the way as well, they can definitely help, bring that reassurance, and help you as well grow and develop your writing and your artwork. So I'd say to new and maybe growing authors and artists to just enjoy what you're doing, really, and share it, because it's worth the world seeing.
Short and sweet to the point. I love that. I love it. And with that, viewers and listeners, this ends the very first author interview for the month of July. I want to give a huge thank you to my dear friend Lowri for coming out here on the show and making her second appearance on the show. It won't be the last, I guarantee you. Lowri, thank you so very much for coming on the show. And where can people find and engage with you on social media if they want to know more about the Four Lands, or if they want to inquire about doing commission works from you?
So I'm on Inkit at Maiden of the Forest. I'm also on Instagram at Maiden of the Forest. But I've got my art accounts on Instagram as well, Ivory Quill or Ivory Quill Commissions. So message me on any of those, really. I am on Facebook as well. I think it's Lowri Ball. So yeah, just contact me on any of those. I can, I'm pretty easy to get a hold of. Commissions, writing, it doesn't matter what account you use. It's, I use them all, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be specific to either account.
All right. I will link those all down below in the description of this video. Make sure to give Lowri a follow. She is incredible. She's an incredible artist, incredible author. You will not be disappointed. And also, before I forget, she's also a very incredible editor as well. So if you also want to inquire her about editing a book, or even like a short story or a collection of short stories, hit her up, because you will not be disappointed. And I know that from experience. She is probably the most detailed editor I have worked with now on now all three of my books, my two previous ones, and of course my upcoming one, Michael, which Lowri was a huge help for that. She really helped create the story to its fullest potential. So Lowri, thank you for the bottom of my heart, and I wish also for our continued partnership going forward. And hopefully, viewers and listeners, you're able to have the same experience that I have with my great friend Lowri.
Thank you for having me, Gabriel.
You're welcome, Lowri. And as always, viewers and listeners, make sure to like and subscribe and comment down below what was your favorite part of the interview. And if you've been following my social media, what was your favorite commission made by Lowri? Until then, this has been the Wandering Scribe and the Wandering Quill signing out. Wishing you all a wonderful day, and be on the lookout for future episodes coming this week and the weeks after. Until then, have a wonderful day.